Hi, I'm Lily James for the Barbican Young Reviewers, and this is Rattle, the season-opening concert by the London Symphony Orchestra with their new musical director, Simon Rattle, conducting. Watch footage of Simon Rattle conduct. At first he looks kind of like a priest. He's all eyes turned skyward, wearing long, high-necked black robes, looking like he's receiving divine inspiration. But look again, and it's Mick Jagger in the Start Me Up music video. He's all pointing fingers, flying hair. He's got all the edgy, jerky swagger of rock stars from Johnny Pierce to Brian.
Who do I think I am?
We can't see them, but they're singing. Okay, so it's the day after the concert, even though I'm wearing the same clothes, and I want to talk to you all about all of it because all of it was cool. It was my first time inside the Barbican concert hall, and being inside it is kind of like being inside an enormous brutalist beehive. It's all honey and amber colours with geometric shapes cut out of the walls that reminded me of when you make paper snowflakes when you're little. The concert started with a fanfare by Helen Grime. This was commissioned specifically for this event, and it's part of a wider piece that will be performed later on in the season. The fanfare wasn't like a fanfare, it was like the soundtrack to walking around a stranger's house late at night. It was uneasy, it was nervous. Even when it swelled into something that looked like it might have been something really triumphant, that triumph was tinged with fear. Next was Thomas Addis's Asyla. Thomas Addis, who stopped breathing when he was composing it because he couldn't feel his heartbeat. Thomas Addis, whose first ever opera was banned by Classic FM. The visual spectacle of Asyla is amazing. What feels like hundreds of violin bows pointed skywards like fencing swords ready to attack. There's the repeated motif of the hi-hat cymbal, which to me has always felt like this extremely democratic sound. You can hear it in an orchestra, but you can also hear that in a garage band backing track or a drum machine that you found in your parents' garage. When there were moments of serenity and stillness in the music, the asylum that was hinted at by the title, it was the asylum of burning out, of a hangover. The strings whined in these gorgeous circular forms that made you think of the white noise going on in the back of your head when you feel hazy after a night out. As we moved into the third part, the Extasio, it reminded me of nothing so much as it did of a Jamie XX track, which it should have done because the repetitions are based on the repetitions in techno music. The strings weren't whining anymore, they were physically twanging against the wood of the instruments. Okay, so this is the bit where it got really twangy. The final piece before the interval was the Harrison Birtwistle Violin Concerto with Christian Tetzlaff as the soloist. He stood at the front of the stage almost like a final boss, and other instruments like the flute and the oboe came up to interact with him. It was sometimes unclear what the nature of these interactions were. Sometimes, for example with the flute, it felt antagonistic, them taking each other over, talking to each other, shouting at each other. And then sometimes, like with the oboe, it felt like these were two friends in the middle of an extremely animated conversation over some fabulous dinner. Back from the interval, and I loved the people I was sitting next to because they had this thing they did where every time a new piece started they would nod, not in enjoyment but as if to be like, this is correct. And nothing could have been more correct than Oliver Knussen's Symphony No. 3, which uses the sounds of percussion not just as this driving rhythmic force, but actually properly honours the various sounds they make so that each bang of the drum could be seen as like an individual discrete musical note. If anything was going to give me that warm, fuzzy, this is classical music feeling, it was going to be Elgar's Enigma Variations. But of course it didn't, because it worked perfectly in the context of this entire concert. The Enigma Variations, of course, is sampled in one of the great techno tracks of all time, Club to Death, the soundtrack to The Matrix. This is the song from The Matrix. So in that way, it formed almost a conversation piece with Asyla, classical music inspired by techno, techno taking its notes from classical music. It was during the Enigma Variations that you saw the subtlety of Rattle's style. I talked earlier about moving hands, shaking fingers like a rock star, but here he acts almost as an interpreter for the music. When he moves his hands like dropping rain, you understand what it is that the music can be translated into visually. When he smiles, you smile. There's something beatific about him as he conducts this, something that tells you it's beautiful even if you don't understand why yourself. He has a vocabulary that I don't have, but through his muscle movements and through his face, he manages to share it. And that's a pretty cool gift to give to someone over the course of one evening.